Welcome Formula One News fans. This is the Formula One News Hour and I'm your host Jonathan Steele. We don't have a race this week and so we are going to do a history of Formula One session and of course catch up with a little bit of the news that's happened. It's still happening over the week, which has not been that much really, but first we want to go ahead and thank our sponsors. Want to thank Moms for Liberty, an organization that we all should get behind and help, because they are out there for no other reason than to help us to get our kids the education that they need. So please go to momsforliberty.org, join one of their chapters. They've got about 300 nationwide now and going up. In fact, since they've been sponsoring this program, they've added over 120, 130 chapters. So we need to support them. We want to get our kids learning math and English and science instead of all this other rubbish that they're trying to push down these social things that they're trying to push down the kids' throats. So please go to momsforliberty.org and help them by joining their organization, one of their chapters, create a chapter of your own in your neighborhood, and of course provide them with the financial help that they need to keep this program going. It's a very good organization. That's momsforliberty.org. We want to thank Thenology, a small data center here in Austin, Texas, providing all things technology. That's public cloud, private cloud, co-location, disaster recovery, storage, anything that you could possibly think about needing for your business in terms of technology, you can find at Thenology. That is thenology.com. And then, of course, we've done Moms for Liberty. Of course, is Give, Send, Go. Give, Send, Go, an organization that is out there to help you when things have not really gone as you expected in life, or maybe a friend has had some issues. And it could be just someone that is in the news that you need to help. And I'm talking about Give, Send, Go, the crowdfunding entity. No censorship from these guys. They're not going to decide, oh no, we're not going to help this person because we don't like their political beliefs, or they said something that we don't like, or something like that. So the people that you really need to go to when you need help is Give, Send, Go. It could be, of course, that you just want to start a business, right? So starting a business, you need to raise some funds. A lot of paperwork involved, but well worth it. Go to Give, Send, Go. And as we mentioned last week, and I think maybe the week before, our public service announcement is going out to raceagainstdementia.com. Raceagainstdementia.com, an organization formed by Sir Jackie Stewart to help those and to help try and find a cure for dementia, as it has struck Sir Jackie at the core of his family. His wife Helen is a dementia sufferer, and folks, about 1 in 3 people, according to what Sir Jackie said on this program a few weeks ago, are going to suffer from dementia in their lifetime, and it's getting to be the #1 cause of death amongst us older people. So please go out there to raceagainstdementia.com. Okay, so let's think about what's in the news. Of course, the big news is still about young Ollie Behrman and the incredible drive that he had for Ferrari last week. Not too many people can pull off what he did, and you know, it brings up, for me anyway, the question of why are we still having drivers that are really not that good. Ollie Behrman beat Lewis Hamilton. Not to say Lewis Hamilton's still not that good. As you heard me say, I don't believe that Lewis Hamilton has it anymore. But just think about that. He came in 7th. Yes, the car's a big part of that. But also, this is a young driver, never been in a Formula One race before, and he gets in there and he drives an almost perfect, in fact, for him, I would say a perfect race. And so you got to ask yourself, you know, what is Nico Hülkenberg still doing? We've got Liam Lawson out there. Look at what he did standing in for Danny Ricciardo. I think come the end of this season, 2024 season, we're going to see a lot a lot of guys that are going to be shuffled around in the Formula One news. So the other thing, of course, is still, you know, everybody's predicting all of these big catastrophes going on at Red Bull. And there is one guy out there, a Brit out there, that's doing a podcast, and he, like I, are never going to really accuse anybody of anything. We will repeat some of the nonsense that's going on in some of these larger news media, you know, the ones that said Christian Horner should resign, and Christian Horner and Helmut Marko are having battles, and Max Verstappen's going to Mercedes, and all these kinds of things. When it's certainly the rumor mill it has had it that, you know, a lot of this was caused by Jos Verstappen, and of course nobody knows anything. The only people that really know anything are the people that are intimately involved. Now, the woman who made these claims and who has since lost her job, well, it says she's been laid off, let's say that, with pay. But she said she's going to be forced to come out and you know, say some things that is counter to what Christian Horner has said and things like that. And, you know, it was during the week there was a survey: should women that make false accusations against men, or make accusations that can't be proven, should there be a retribution that they have to pay? And I say yes. You know, if a woman is being badly treated right now, get out there right now and do something about it. Don't wait, you know, for 4 or 5 years or 2 years or whatever. If it's really bad and it needs to be dealt with, it should be dealt with now. It's hard to believe somebody when they come, you know, 4, 5, some of them 10, 15 years later, right? And the problem with that is, it's not to say that it didn't happen, but, you know, we had a case here of a judge that was appointed to the Supreme Court. You know, 30 years down the road, this woman comes out and said, oh yes, he did this, he did that. And as it turns out, nobody could prove anything because it was 30 years ago, but the judge could prove that he was not in the vicinity of this woman on the night she said that he did all of these bad things to her. And one of the things that it's doing, it's really putting women in the wrong spotlight. If women are being abused, they need to be believed, and we need to take action. But if you're being abused, don't wait for 10 and 15 years to come forward and say, I was abused, because it just looks like you want to be in the news. Or in the case of a famous football player here in the United States, Dak Prescott, you know, he got a very nice letter from a woman's lawyer who he dated 3 or 4 years ago and said, oh, by the way, if you don't give me $100 million, I'm going to say that you sexually abused me. Right? And of course, you know, Dak says, oh yeah, we dated and everything. But why do that? Why? Because now nobody believes her, right? And coming out and asking for $100 million? Are you kidding me? Yeah, can Dak Prescott afford to pay it? Of course he can. But the problem is now what's happening, there's a number of these things going on right now, is that more and more women are not going to be believed at all. And that's not good, right? So ladies, before you decide to come forward after 10 or 15 years of being abused and say somebody been abused, encourage all your friends that you know are being abused today to come forward now and get it dealt with now, when things are really fresh in everybody's mind, and people can put names and faces and dates and all that kind of stuff to what's going on. And sadly, we say maybe there's bruising and stuff like that, because coming forward 15 years later, 5 years later, is just not the way to handle it. So anyway, that's my pulpit talk for today. I just really wish that we can just accept that if women are being abused, that they come forward straight away and get it dealt with, and get these men put where they should be, and that's in jail. Okay? But don't come forward 10 years later, or even make false accusations, as happened with the doctor on a flight a couple of months ago. Why this particular young female decided to make the accusations she made, nobody knows. But the doctor was fired, he went to court and all this kind of stuff, only to find out, of course, that he was innocent. So anyway, let's get to the other news, of course, and that is the fact that it looks like Carlos Sainz is going to be available for the race in Australia. So young Ollie Behrman is probably not going to get another chance to drive that car next weekend. But we will wait and see. It was quite amazing. I think I mentioned I had a number of couple serious operations, and to see Carlos Sainz back out running around on the street a day after he'd had his appendix out just proves that the great advances that we've made in medicine. Let's get to this week's history of Formula One. And one of the things that I was looking when I was deciding on who we were going to feature this week and the history of Formula One, I realized that we've done all of the drivers from the 50s, all of the drivers from the 60s. We've done a couple of drivers from the 70s, so Jackie Stewart being one and Emerson Fittipaldi being the other. But this week we're going to focus on our great and good friend Niki Lauda. Great and good friend. Niki was born on February the 22nd, 1949, and died in 2019. So if Niki was still alive, he would be, actually it's interesting, he was born on February the 22nd, because I had a brother that was killed by a drunk driver, and he was born on February the 2nd, 1949. But essentially he would be about a year older than I am. He was born in Vienna, Austria, to some very wealthy parents that were in the paper manufacturing business. If you've never seen how paper is made, if you get a chance, go check it out. It's a very, very interesting process. And his family owned a paper mill, as we call them here in the States. Don't call it manufacturing, paper mills. And they actually did not want Niki getting into car racing at all. It was such a bad thing for them that in the end Niki kind of split away from his family altogether. They were so dead against him being a race car driver. Of course, he started driving race cars like a lot of people in his time did, driving sports cars. In fact, the first car he raced was a little Mini. So all of you Mini Cooper fans out there, when you're jumping behind the wheel, you can think about the first time Niki Lauda jumped behind the wheel of a Mini Cooper and started to race. So he not only drove minis, of course, like many other people in that time, many other drivers. They drove a number of different sports cars and things like that. But getting into Formula One was really not that easy for Niki Lauda. Strange as it was, as everybody knows, turned out to be one of the greatest Formula One drivers around. But he actually had to go out and borrow money so that he could pay the car company March Racing. He actually bought his way into that company. They were struggling financially. They wanted money. He wanted to drive, and so the very first open wheel car that he drove was a Formula 2 March. That would have been, I think, probably back in the late 1960s, so early 1970s. No, it was, I'm going to say the late 1960s, 66, 67 time frame. And actually, it didn't last that long because March eventually folded. He did, the first Formula One car that he drove was a March, and he did come in second in that race. So that was really, really impressive for him to get into second place in a car that was not doing well, with a car company that was not doing well. And in fact, by the end of his second year with March had pretty much dissolved. Now, so what he had to do now was he had to go out and borrow more money, because now he still wanted to get into racing, or get back into racing, we should say. But this time he borrowed money to join BRM. For those of you who have listened to these podcasts frequently, you'll know that BRM was a British company. In fact, BRM is British Racing Motors, and it struggled along with everybody else in those times. Remember, back in those days, they didn't have the advertising or the sponsors that is out there today. Today, you know, in fact, I think the spending cap for a Formula One team is 240 million. Back when Mercedes really started to dominate the, 5, 6, 7 years ago, these guys were spending 300-400 million. Well, back in those times, they might be spending 300-400,000, which in today's money would be a couple of $1 million. But still, they just didn't have the sponsorships. In fact, it was Colin Chapman of Lotus that had the bright idea of selling advertising space on his Formula One cars. And that's, if you look at the early days of Formula One, it was all the cigarette companies. So Marlboro and what was the Dunhill, the British tobacco companies. So and then of course it got to be Esso and Elf, and Shell, so the fuel companies that were providing the fuel. So that's when the money started to get better. But it wasn't in time to save, even with Niki Lauda's money, it was not enough to save the BRM from eventually folding. So BRM, their number one driver at the time was a guy called Clay Regazzoni. Clay was a very, very good driver, and we'll actually do a history of Clay here in the next few weeks. But Clay Regazzoni left and he went to Ferrari. And Ferrari asked him what he thought about Niki Lauda. And Clay Regazzoni told Enzo Ferrari that he thought that Niki Lauda was probably one of the best racing drivers that he has seen in his career. And with the recommendation from Clay Regazzoni, the Niki Lauda got hired by Ferrari. In fact, and they paid him so much money that he had a 40,000 euro loan, which wasn't euros back then, but they were saying they were making the equivalent. So they had a 40,000 and a 30,000. So you had 70,000 in euros. So let's say $70,000 out there in loans, which he had guaranteed with his life insurance, strangely enough. But anyway, he made enough money from Ferrari to pay off his loans. And Ferrari was well rewarded for that, because in his first race for Ferrari, which was in 1974, he came in second. It was then about to be a marriage made in heaven. And in 1974, he actually made more poles than anybody else, but the car and the driver were not yet meshed properly. So although he had an excellent year in 1974, getting lots of poles, the car wasn't finishing, or he wasn't finishing, which is both anyway, but sometimes it was due to mechanical failure, sometimes it was due to driver error. But he did come in fourth place in 1974. And by that time, of course, everybody's taking a real hard look at who is this guy, Niki Lauda. So Niki Lauda then in 1975 had a much better year, and he was winning. In fact, the first that was 1975. He had a much better year, and in fact became Formula One world champion in 1975. With lots of poles and lots of good finishes. And interestingly enough, at that time, of course, there was the British driver. His name will come to me. His name will come to me in just a second. But he and Niki Lauda had a battle, a friendly battle, of course. They turned out to be really good friends. And that let's see. let's see, who was that? They made, oh, James Hunt is who the guy that I'm thinking about. So James Hunt and Niki Lauda really battled it out for 75 and 76. And it's in 76, his season started off amazingly well. He won out of the first 6 races, he won 4. And then at that same time, he set the fastest lap recorded at that time for Nuremberg. Now, Nuremberg is famous for a lot of things. It still is the longest Formula One track ever in history, but it has also claimed the lives of people like Jim Clark, Peter Revson, and others. And also in that year, it put a stop to Niki Lauda's ability to get the back-to-back world championship, because he crashed, his car burst into flames, and it was actually other drivers that managed to get him out of the car and save his life. It ended, of course, if you ever get out and you see pictures of Niki, he was badly disfigured. To say badly, not so badly. The whole left side of his face, his left ear was burned off and stuff like that. But one of the things that you didn't see the fire cause, and that was at the time, was a lot of internal organ problems that came from that. Now, Niki was a tough guy, and he got back into the cockpit 2 races after. So he missed 2 races. So it's on the 3rd race after and he had a special cover made for his face and a special helmet, because the burn of his skin and his scalp and everything had not healed properly. So he got back into the car and started racing again. As the season went on, he made a decision, I believe it was at Monza, that he would not race because it was raining so hard that he decided it was not worth the risk. And so at the end of the season, it was James Hunt, his good friend, who would win the 1976 World Championship. And we will probably do the next Formula One News Hour will probably be on, we'll do Clay Regazzoni first, and then we'll do James Hunt. Very, very interesting guy. But so James Hunt would go on to win the World Championship in 1976. And interestingly enough, James Hunt, after winning that championship, walked away from Formula One. So right at the pinnacle of his career, he decided to give it up. As it was for Niki Lauda, he would go on and in 1977 he would win the Formula One World Championship. Now in 1977, he kind of quit early. After he had been badly burned in the car, the Ferrari guys kind of almost put him in third role position, and of course he at the time was Ferrari's #1 driver, because Clay Regazzoni had left, and so he was Ferrari's #1 driver, and so being demoted from #1 to #3, he did not take kindly to that. And so in 1977, again, in which he dominated poles and races, he won the championship before the end of the season, about 1 or 2 races before. And as soon as he had won the championship and he knew that nobody else could beat him to it anymore, he hung it up with Ferrari and he said goodbye. He just did not like the way that he had been treated. So not a lot happened for Niki in 1978 and 1979. He drifted around between different teams, and then at the end of 1979 he decided to call it quits, that he was retiring from Formula One. And I would say for the Formula One world, that was kind of a sad ending. But oh, wait a minute, it didn't end. So Niki went off and he formed an airline, a charter airline, Lauda Air. And he actually was in partnership with a European airline company. As part of that, Niki owned 49%, and this larger airline owned 51%. So in 1982, he went back into racing, but this time he would go back into racing as a manager, and he managed the sorry, I was checking my notes. Yeah, he managed the Formula One team of Jaguar. And for those of you who remember that far back, Jaguar was a team started and built by Sir Jackie Stewart, and Sir Jackie Stewart ended up selling that team, which moved over time. And for those of you who know or don't know, the Mercedes team today is the Jaguar team of the early 80s. So the Jaguar team folded in 1982. I'm sorry, the Jaguar team folded in 2002. I've got my years mixed up there. The Jaguar team folded in 2002. So in 1982, Niki did go back and he was driving for Ferrari. Sorry about that. So in 1982, he went back and he started driving for Ferrari again, but he never did have the success. And so, and at the end of the 82 season, he walked away, and eventually during that time, he sold his airline and then started another airline. And then, of course, when he joined Jaguar in 2000, actually 2001, then he sold that second airline. In between those times, he was a consultant to a number of different car racing companies, and he still spent a lot of time around the paddocks, around racing, but more in executive roles, as he did with Jaguar. And in fact, when Niki died in 2019, he was what you call a non. But let's see what a non-executive chairman of Mercedes. And for those of you who don't know, at the time, Lewis Hamilton was driving for McLaren, and it was Niki Lauda that convinced Lewis Hamilton to move from McLaren to Mercedes. And this was right after that Lewis Hamilton had won a world championship with McLaren. And so it was a really difficult decision that Lewis had to make, getting from a winning team to maybe a winning team. And it was Niki Lauda that convinced him that Mercedes was going to be a dominant force and that he should join the team of Mercedes, which of course is history now, and he did. So Niki Lauda died in 2019, and few people really understood why he died. Well, during that crash in 1976, in which he was badly burned, then a lot of the gases that were coming out of the fire and the flames, of course, he was breathing those in. And so during the latter parts of his life, he had a lung transplant and a kidney transplant. And it would be his kidneys failing that would eventually take his life at a young age. In 2019, then he would have been 70 years old, which in today's world it's young. So Jackie Stewart's 84. Emerson Fittipaldi in his 80s. Roger Penske in his late 80s, early 90s. We've got a lot of guys. Jim Hall. I know you go, who's Jim Hall? Jim Hall is a very famous chaparral guy, lives up in Midland, Texas. He's 89. So the 70s are the old 50s. The 90s are the old 70s. So there's lots and lots of folks that are living way into the late 80s and 90s. And it would have been nice if Niki Lauda could have also joined with that group of people. But, you know, when it's your time to go, it's your time to go. And if you ever looked at Niki, you'd see he's all, you know, he looked like he was like a little overweight and puffed up, and of course that's due to the drugs that he was taking to keep him alive, because on top of everything else, even though he'd had a kidney transplant, he was still on the dialysis. So at the end, though, he did leave behind 4 children from 2 different wives. His first wife, I think, from 1994 through it was let's see if I made notes on that. I didn't, but anyway, he had 2 wives, 2 children from each wife, and of course he's left behind a number of grandchildren. And on his children from his first marriage, one of them became a fairly successful race car driver, not in Formula One, but just generally racing cars. And his brother was his manager, is his manager. I guess he's still racing to a certain extent. So anyway, that is the life and times of Niki Lauda, and so brings to end this edition of the Formula One News Hour with Jonathan Steele. But let's go ahead and thank a few people first. Let's thank Give, Send, Go, sponsors of the Formula One News Hour from the very first episode of the Formula One News Hour. Give, Send, Go. You can't always help what happens to you in life, folks, but you can certainly make good decisions on who you're going to help you to get better from life's catastrophes. And Give, Send, Go is the entity that you need to go to. It's givesendgo.com. And of course, Moms for Liberty. You've heard me talk many times about Moms for Liberty, and my favorite sponsor, because they're out there helping you. So you need to get involved and help Moms for Liberty help you, help them help you. So join one of their chapters. They're growing every month. Lots of chapters out there. If there's not a chapter in your area, please go out, get online, and create your own chapter and provide the sponsorships that they need to get our schools teaching our kids what really needs to be taught in school instead of all of this social stuff. And of course, Thenology, the small data center in Austin, Texas. Thenology is providing everything technology that you could need for your business, whether it be a private cloud, a public cloud, co-location, a disaster recovery, storage, managed services. It's really unique in that it's a data center that also provides all of the services that companies need to keep their technology running. So please go to thenology.com. Sorry about that. Now also, as we've mentioned at the beginning of the news hour, and last week and the week before, we're giving a public service announcement to Race Against Dementia. You can find more information about them on the web. At raceagainstdementia.com. You can find information about them at the Formula One News Hour. There's an interview on the Formula One News Hour website with Sir Jackie Stewart, and he talks about the good work that he has got the folks at Race Against Dementia involved with. Of course, he started it because of his wife's Helen is a dementia sufferer. And we can't end a Formula One News Hour without thanking our all things technical guru. What's his name again? Oh yeah, Andre Kuhn. Thank you, Andre, for everything you do every week, and all of the tech stuff and trying to make me look good, which this week might be difficult. I think there's been a few little hiccups and blurbs here and there, but Andre will do a good job of removing them. So again, Thank you, Andre. And so until next week, when we will have live streaming for you guys the Australian Grand Prix. And remember, it's on the other side of the world, so I'm guessing it's either going to be late at night, around midnight, or it's going to be early in the morning, around 4 or 5 o'clock. But we shall see. But we will see you next week on the Formula One News Hour. This is Jonathan Steele saying have a great week.